Hi everyone. Today I'll be talking about Paulo Freire and his work. Paulo Freire is one of the most influential educators of the 20th century, but his ideas didn't just come from books or theories, they were shaped by his own life experiences. Freire's early struggles with poverty, hunger, and education laid the foundation for his revolutionary approach to teaching, which focused on empowering the oppressed and challenging inequality. Let's take a closer look at how his life shaped his work. Though he came from a middle class family, the Depression hit hard. Freire experienced significant poverty, even resorting to theft briefly to help his family survive. Attending school was challenging, not because of ability, but because starvation made it almost impossible for him to learn. These experiences helped him see the deep connection between social class and access to knowledge, a theme that would guide his life's work. Freire went on to study law, but found his true calling in education. His focus was in literacy for impoverished communities. In 1961, he became director of the Department of Cultural Extension of Recife University. One of his most famous projects involved teaching 300 sugarcane workers to read in just 45 days. He did this by using words and lessons tied to their daily lives, making learning meaningful and empowering. Freire's work was groundbreaking, but also controversial. After a military coup in 1964, he was imprisoned as a traitor for educating and empowering the poor. The government saw this as a threat. He was eventually exiled, but his work continued to influence education systems worldwide. Dialogue to Freire was something deeply human, not just as a conversation. According to him, dialogue is much more than just speaking to one another. From our reading in class, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he saw discourse as an opportunity for action, introspection, and change. It's how we communicate, grow, and eventually transform the world. According to Freire, dialogue is necessary. What does that actually mean, though? Let's analyze it. Freire said the essence of dialogue is the word, but it's not just about talking. The true word, according to him, has two crucial elements: reflection and action. Both are so interconnected that if you lose one, the other falls apart too. Without action, reflection becomes empty chatter, just talk without change. Without reflection, action becomes mindless and ineffective. True dialogue combines both. It's a way to transform the world. For Freire, dialogue goes beyond simply exchanging ideas or engaging in debate. It's a collaborative process where people come together to understand, articulate, and transform the world around them. It's not a privilege reserved for a few, it's a fundamental right for everyone. Transformation isn't a solo effort, and no one should speak on behalf of others. True dialogue requires equality and collective participation. But achieving genuine dialogue is no easy feat. Freire emphasized that dialogue fails when power and arrogance take center stage. How can real dialogue exist if one person believes they are superior or forces their version of truth onto others? That's not dialogue, it becomes domination. And domination erodes love, which Freire saw as the cornerstone of dialogue. He didn't mean love as sentimentality, but as a bold commitment to others, a driving force for liberation. Without love, along with humility and trust, dialogue turns into manipulation. So, what makes dialogue authentic? First, it requires humility, the recognition that no one has all the answers. Freire believed that every individual, regardless of their background, has something valuable to contribute. Second, it relies on trust. Trust is built when actions align with words. Without this alignment, dialogue falls apart. Finally, dialogue must be fueled by hope. Hope sustains the belief that transformation is possible, and without it, dialogue loses its purpose. Dialogue is not an easy process, but it is essential. Without dialogue, we lose a vital part of what makes us human: the ability to connect, reflect, and to create meaningful change. I want to talk about something that I found interesting in understanding Paulo Freire's work, which is how his ideas connect to Marxist philosophy, education, and social change. Marxist Freire wasn't just a theorist, he was an educator who believed that education could be a tool to challenge oppression and transform society. Pedagogy of the Oppressed is a great example of how he brought together ideas from Marxism and other disciplines to create a powerful approach to learning and liberation. According to this article, Freire's thinking was shaped by Marxist philosophy, especially ideas like alienation, false consciousness, and the need for personal freedom. He saw capitalism as a system that divides and oppresses people, and he wanted education to be a way to fight back. He built on Marx's ideas about how people are shaped by history and society, but also have the power to change them. Freire's most famous idea is his critique of what he called the banking model of education. This is where teachers just deposit information into students, like their empty accounts. Freire argued that this approach reinforces social inequality because it trains people to accept the world as it is instead of questioning or changing it. Instead, he pushed for education based on dialogue. Teachers and students should learn together, sharing ideas and experiences. Freire believed this kind of interaction could help people understand and challenge the systems that oppress them. Freire's ideas about freedom come from Marxism. Both of them believed that real freedom starts with self-awareness. You can't change the world if you don't first understand how you're shaped by it, and how you might also be contributing to oppression. Freire adds to this by saying that education is key to this process. Through dialogue and critical thinking, people can start to see the bigger picture, question the status quo, and take action. He called this praxis, combining reflection and action to make real change. For Freire, like Marx, humans are social beings. Our identities are shaped by the relationships and systems around us, but we're not stuck in them. We have the power to reshape those systems, especially when we work together. In education, this means teaching isn't just about adapting people to the world, it's about giving them the tools to change it. Freire believed that relationships and dialogue are at the heart of this process. He said that to truly become human, we need to engage in collective action to transform oppressive systems. Here's where Freire goes beyond Marx. While Marx focused on economics and class struggle, he didn't really explain how people's awareness of oppression turns into action. Freire fills this gap by showing how education can help oppressed people recognize their situation, to articulate their struggles, and later to take action. His critique of the banking model ties into this. He saw it as a similar to how capitalism alienates workers. By turning students into passive receivers of knowledge, traditional education cuts them off from their own potential to think critically and act. I also want to discuss Freire's pedagogical philosophy and its application in literacy programs, particularly through the research conducted in João Pessoa, Brazil, in 1999. This study, which spanned over 12 months, focused on three non government organizations that applied Freire's ideas in their literacy initiatives. João Pessoa is a region with extreme poverty and high illiteracy rates, historically associated with Freirean pedagogy, which focuses on the empowerment of marginalized communities through education. The study used participant observation, interviewing teaching English classes, primarily with the non governmental organization VITA. These non government organizations used Freirean principles like egalitarian teacher student relationships and using dialogue for learning. One central approach that stood out was the use of a friendship strategy, which aimed to foster trust and mutual respect between teachers and students. Teachers invited students to share personal struggles. This helped reduce the hierarchy that is present in classrooms. This contrasted with the often more authoritarian methods of traditional public schooling. While the focus on creating emotional connections and boosting students' confidence was really important, implementing critiques of broader class structures and systematic inequality were not as important. The teaching strategy was more about cultivating sociability and emotional support than addressing deep rooted social issues. This kind of counteracts Freire's ultimate goal of social transformation to a focus on creating a respectful and supportive classroom environment. Teachers often described the ideal educator as caring, understanding, and as a friend, which was key to creating an open atmosphere. In this sense, the pedagogy helped in creating that. The benefits of this friendship strategy included fostering meaningful dialogue. Teachers avoided positioning themselves as experts and instead encouraged students to share their stories, aligning partially with Freire's concept of dialogue. Teachers also work to reduce students' feelings of shame about their literacy and language skills, making conversation a crucial tool in helping students recognize their own potential. However, while this approach created more positive classroom dynamics, its impact was limited outside the classroom. In real world contexts, students still defer to social hierarchies, and the informal, egalitarian nature of the classroom didn't necessarily translate into activism or social change. Another important critique is that while teachers did engage with students' local knowledge, such as knowledge of ecology or medicinal plants, they often oversimplified Freire's ideas about incorporating popular or working class knowledge into the curriculum. There seemed to be a more local knowledge, which sometimes overlooked the diversity of students' experiences and interests. The tension between respecting students' knowledge and guiding them towards certain outcomes also mirrors Freire's own contradictions. On the one hand, teachers respected the students' experiences, but on the other, they sometimes viewed that knowledge as inferior or incomplete compared to their own official knowledge. So, this raises an important point about the limitations of Freire's pedagogy as applied in this context. The article argues that Freire's theory would benefit from a broader understanding of power and knowledge. Instead of sticking strictly to a binary view of oppressor versus oppressed, it suggests adopting a more fluid, relational view of power. This would allow educators to better address the complexities of oppression and social change in a more inclusive way. A key quote from the article that encapsulates its argument is: "The communication of respect for one student should be the foundation of a critical pedagogy, not its ultimate goal." This speaks to the idea that while emotional connections are important, they should not overshadow the deeper goal of critical pedagogy, which is to promote social justice and transformative change. In conclusion, while Freire's philosophy has had a significant impact on education, especially in marginalized communities, there is a need for educators to engage more critically with his ideas. Understanding complexities of power, knowledge, and social change is essential for achieving the radical transformation that Freire envisioned. From 1964 until 1980, Paulo Freire lived in exile in Bolivia, Chile, the United States, and Switzerland for 16 years. During his stay in Chile, he wrote Pedagogy of the Oppressed and strengthened his literacy work. Pedagogy of the Oppressed was banned in around 17 countries. Sorry, it was translated into 17 languages and it was banned in multiple countries. He then went on to work with the World Council of Churches, traveling the world to advocate for educational reform, and his experiences with oppression in the United States influenced his work. While he was in the United States, he did teach at Harvard and published many papers. Freire won various awards, such as the UNESCO Prize for Education for Peace and the King Boudin International Development Prize. His lasting impact consists of empowering marginalized people. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.